In today's video, I'm going to share some insight with you why historically the best way to grow any business is actually the silent killer as to why your micro school or alternative educational platform is not seeing the growth that it ultimately wants to see. And if you're new here and you don't know who I am, my name is Evan Andrews, the owner and operator of Vandrews Media. And over the last several years, I have been helping businesses here in the Houston area grow their online presence and generate more leads into their businesses through video systems on Facebook and Instagram. Now, I fully understand why word of mouth marketing is the de facto default for the way that most entrepreneurs out there try to grow the thing that they've started. At the end of the day, it's the most organic and it feels the most authentic. But there are a few main problems by solely relying on word of mouth and referrals to try and grow your program. Simply trying to rely on word of mouth is why it seems so chaotic in the growth that you're trying to experience right now with your school or your platform. You've probably experienced it before where some months it seems like you're swimming in potential interest, and then other months it's like a desert around you and you don't know where that new interest is ultimately coming from. You might be sitting around trying to ask yourself, am I going to hit the numbers that I ultimately need to keep this thing operational and see another year of education? And I know, trust me, you did not get into this to think about it like a business from a money and monetary standpoint. But at the end of the day, you do have to understand that you are running a business. You are running an alternative educational model that does take capital to be able to operate. So over the next several minutes, I'm going to break down exactly why simply relying on word of mouth and referrals is not contributing to the growth that you ultimately want. So now before we get started, I want to direct your attention down in the description of this video. There is a freebie training that you can go grab. It's actually a checklist and audit of your current enrollment processes for your platform or your school. You can go grab that and walk through it, and it may help you figure out where you might have some gaps in your current enrollment process. And you'll see a lot of what you're going to hear in this video today also reflected over there. And hopefully that'll help you uncover what some of those issues might be. So it's completely free. You can go down to the description of this video now and grab that for yourself. All right, so let's talk a little bit about why simply relying on word of mouth is actually dangerous for the growth that you're trying to see with your school and your platform. Because at the end of the day, there's about three main flaws with simply trying to rely solely on this tactic. And flaw number one goes back to something that I kind of said earlier, and it is about the lack of control in this process. Relying on word of mouth and referrals is not like a switch on the wall where you can just turn the lights on and turn the lights off. It is literally impossible to try and grow and scale simply trying to do just that one system. Now, I get it because historically, word of mouth and referrals is the number one way to grow a business if you can catch fire through that referral system. But often in most cases for some businesses out there, it is just not physically or feasibly possible for you to be able to do that. Because if you needed 10 new families to enter your program next month, I mean, ask yourself, what exactly would you do to be able to do that? Would you reach out to 10 current families that you have, hoping that each of them would bring you somebody? Or would you have to reach out to 100 families that you have? What if you don't have 100 families? What does that look like? How are you going to be able to do that through trying to rely simply on word of mouth and referrals? It's just seemingly possible for you to be able to do that. But the programs around you or people that you might be competing with, they've figured out something in that process that they can turn on like a light switch or like a water faucet that simply gives them what they need as they need it. And generally, flaw number two in relying on word of mouth and referrals is just the timing component of the entire process. It's very, very slow. Let's say you do have currently a stack of parents inside of the program now that love you. They rave about you and they would tell anybody great things about you. How can you rely on what that timeline looks like for them to say those things about you? Are you going to have to wait a week? Are you going to have to wait a month? Are you going to have to wait for the stars around you to align so that the perfect situation comes up to where your name can be dropped in that bucket? It just doesn't seem feasible that simply waiting around for others to speak about you is the best way that you want to get the growth of your model in your school and your educational program. But let's play the other side of that coin as well. Let's say that somebody does say something to one of their friends or another prospective parent for you. How long now do you have to wait for that individual to reach out to you to inquire about the school? You see what I'm saying here? There doesn't go to the predictability aspect and the speed that you ultimately need to be able to keep up the consistency in growing your school. And then flaw number 3 that I see with simply relying on word of mouth is that it is ultimately capped at the end of the day by how many people you can feasibly reach if you are relying on that strategy. So again, let's say you have about 50 families in your current situation. Well, if each of those families only knew about 5 families themselves, you can see that at the end of the day, you're going to get to a point where you can't reach any more people because your families don't know more families. Now, that can cascade in a positive manner for you if you do get 5 new families from each family, and then those 5 families tell 5 more. That is the way that historically it does work for people. At the end of the day, you are not some viral product that just comes across the Instagram feed and is shared in that manner, right? You are a specific outlet for a specific problem for somebody that ultimately is just not an impulse purchase. Right? So there is long-term nurture, there is long-term effects that are needed to happen to get somebody inside of your ecosystem. It's simply not a predictable pattern and predictable timeline for you to experience what you need to as the operator of the school and of the program. And at the end of the day, you are ultimately leaving over 90% of what your potential market could look like as far as a student body and interested families. You're leaving 90+% of them in the dark by only relying on the word of mouth and referral process to help grow the school. So let's talk a little bit about what a successful school program might do in the alternative to simply relying on word of mouth and referrals. Now, I've broken this process down into about 3 steps as well. And the first thing that we have to unlock, as any business entrepreneur, anybody out there already understands, is that you have to unlock the way in which you generate leads. Now, there are a ton of different ways to generate leads, but what I have found is that there is a definite bridge between time that it takes to do something and cost that it takes to do something. And the best way of figuring out, the best marriage in that is figuring out how to get the most impact out of right amount of inputs, if you will. So the best way that I've been able to do that for the clients that I've worked with is we rely on platforms that are very visual, like Facebook and Instagram, Meta as a whole, to be able to run targeted ads there. So we can use components like video to attract and introduce ourselves to the potential prospects and families that we ultimately want to bring into our program. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, like, I've tried ads before, ads haven't worked, ads seem too complicated, I don't know if I can do those things. Those are all valid concerns and reasons. But I'm here to tell you that today, ads have never been easier to run. The most important part about ads now is the positioning of the creative that we give it. So being the visuals, being the images, the videos, whatever we put up as an ad, that is the most important part about your ads today. The platforms now are so smart that anybody can pretty much get on there and have a creative that, if it does well and looks good and speaks to that foremost person, then it's going to do its job and you're going to see ultimately what you want to see out of that process. But unlocking how you generate leads and how you get consistent leads week over week, month over month, and year over year, that is how you unlock the ultimate growth and getting outside of the word of mouth and referral trap. Now, the second part that ultimately makes up how successful anybody is with the growth of their micro school or their alternative educational platform, what ultimately makes or breaks if choosing ads as your lead generation method is your mechanism. The back end and the follow-up is the second biggest key to this system and this process. If you are generating leads but not following up in a timely manner, then it's almost as if you didn't even need to generate the leads in the first place. Because if you're not reaching out to these people and doing the work on that end, then it's almost can be looked at as all for naught. But the best way that I have found to be able to help the people that I work with is that we do a mix of automation and a bit of manual reach out. And this is often where I see a lot of the balls being dropped in this process because we're not following up in that timely manner. So what we want to do at the end of the day is that we want a few series of automations to happen in that process. One, we want to notify you that you even got a lead, right? And then we want to notify the leads on the other end that, hey, we know that you checked us out and here's some next steps on what the process might look for you to get all of the information that you need. And then depending on how your model might work, you might go for some sort of information call, or you might extend the hand and offer a tour for the parents, the families, and the children to come in and check out the facility and see what it looks like and if it might be a potential fit for them. Obviously, we want to get people into the environment as soon as possible, but it might make sense to at least just speak to somebody on the phone before going through such lengths in getting them into your facility. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you are not using any of the back-end follow-up systems inside of your enrollment processes, this is where a big lift for you can scoop up even things that you're already currently doing. And the last part of what makes a successful system for a micro school or your alternative educational program is moreover for your team and what you see in the back end. And creating a visual pipeline of where all your prospects and leads are in their given step. So if they are in the freshest of lead or the hottest of lead in terms of they've toured the school, they're ready to apply, we want to know where everybody is at inside of that spectrum. And most facilities aren't clear on the way that they organize this. Some do an okay job, maybe using spreadsheets or some kind of visual whiteboard or something like that. And that can work and can be a way that you can go about it. But with the advancements in technology and platforms today, there are much easier ways to keep everybody systemized through a singular pipeline that everybody on your team can grab at a moment's notice. But the overall thing I want you to take away from that is just having the most visual component that you can to know exactly where everybody is in the process. So I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking after hearing everything that I just went through, like, Evan, that sounds great and all, but that sounds like something that's not even in the realm of possibility for me. That sounds like something that only a big private school might benefit from by having all of the tools and the systems to be able to grow the way that they want. Like, there's no way that that's going to work for me. I'm here to say that everything that I just laid out is actually accessible, tangible, and works for any business, any school, any model, any entrepreneur, whether you are a solopreneur and wearing every hat, or you have a team of 5, 10, 15, 30 people in the back end that are helping to facilitate what's going on inside of your school and inside of your facility. But let's talk a little bit about why this is actually more perfect for smaller facilities and smaller programs, maybe like yours. At the end of the day, we know that your program, it's not for everyone. Likely, if you're watching this, you specialize in helping a specific kind of person, a specific kind of child. Whether your facility helps with kids with potential cognitive issues or behavioral issues, or maybe you only satisfy the needs of children who are very gifted and fast-tracked in their educational journey. Whatever it might be, all of these are niche-based people that you help. So you being hyper-specific allows you to run ads, because ads that are more hyper-specific, they usually attract the exact person that you're looking for. Because at the end of the day, families are looking for an alternative to whatever their current situation is, right? So if that is public school for them, there's a reason that they're looking for an alternative for their child from public school, because they're not getting what they need out of the public school system. If they are homeschooling their child, there's a specific need there for their child to get out of being a homeschooled child. If they already are in another private school that is a big private school that's maybe more robust, but kind of feels like they're getting lost in the shuffle like they would at a public school. Those are all people that ultimately could benefit from what it is that you do inside of your services in your micro school or whatever alternative educational program that you do run. And again, the approach works because you're speaking directly to them. And another reason is that you can move fast with this process, right? If you contrast yourself to a large private school, if they also wanted to run this same system, there are likely more cooks in the kitchen, right? There are more decision makers. There's more committees that have to run this operation through to get ad scripts approved or to figure out what is the cadence of that back-end automation. But when you and your team are potentially a smaller fit, then you benefit from making faster decisions. And contrasting what I said earlier about word of mouth being very slow, now you've been able to unlock how do we go a little bit faster? Well, simply because you're smaller, you can go faster in your decision making. Therefore, you can ultimately get what you want out of this process that much quicker. And I think ultimately the reason that this process works for smaller facilities or micro schools like you guys out there is because your mission was started for a particular reason, right? And it deserves better. It deserves to be put more towards the forefront than overshadowed by traditional private schools or the default of public schools. Your mission actually helps people achieve something. It helps them with the betterment of their learning process. It possibly helps them understand their learning style better and get more out of the process of learning and growing as an individual. And I think that's the most important thing because there are families out there that actually need you. They just haven't found you yet, or they don't know where to find you. So by you being able to get out in front of people sooner and first, you're going to be able to generate more leads. By having the back-end systems that get you in touch with those leads faster is going to allow you to potentially convert people at a higher rate. And you having a clear visual and understanding of where everybody is at inside of their own journey, inside of your pipeline, that's going to help you stay organized, and it's going to help you lead people through the longer process that it is for foundations in schools, much like yours. So today in this video, we discussed the three main reasons why you can't rely on word of mouth. Number one, you can't control it. Number two, it works way too slow. And number three, it's ultimately capped in your ability to grow to the potential that you want to. We also learned three key ways that you need to be able to overcome the word of mouth and referral trap. And that is to be able to generate consistent leads for yourself, understand how to automate some sort of back-end conversational flow, and how to keep everybody organized so that you know where everybody is at in their own journey, trying to get them enrolled into your program. And hopefully by now you understand why simple systems like this can work for your micro school or alternative educational model. So again, like I said at the beginning of this video, if you're somebody out there that wants to actually go through and audit maybe what your current enrollment process looks like and maybe uncover any gaps that might lie over there, down in the description of this video is my enrollment audit checklist for micro schools and alternative educational facilities. You can grab it. It's completely free. It's about a 10 or 13 minute breakdown of me going through a series of questions that you will get a point system on, and your points values will let you know where you're at in your potential journey in trying to grow your facility and your program. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today, and I hope to see you in the next one.